Hello, good evening. Welcome once again to Spotlight on MX24. My name is Nwong Falong. This is your destination for current affairs conversations with relevant minds. Yesterday, the Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, released a list of 85 claims of achievement by the NPP government. Now, many of them hinge on the economics. But is it what he says, or do the economists have different perspectives? Today, we're going to be interrogating some of these claims on Spotlight. For this purpose, we are joined by Dr. George Domfe, who is a development economist at the University of Ghana. We're also joined by Professor John Gachi. He's a dean of the University of Cape Coast Business School. Before we get into that, Spotlight will take a quick break, and when we come back, we move into the issues. Stay with us. Welcome back to Spotlight. Before we went on that break, I mentioned we're going to be interrogating some claims the Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, made about economic achievements and some other achievements released yesterday. We are joined by Dr. George Domfe. He's an economist at the University of Ghana, a development economist. We're also joined by Professor John Gati. Prof, welcome to Spotlight.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for giving us your time. Now, Professor John Gachi is a dean of University of Cape Coast Business School. Prof, I don't know if you have been following the conversation that was started by the Vice President.
Well, I listened to many stations.
Some of it.
We try to articulate some of the issues that you're raising. The question at this point in time is the issue that we have crisis on hand, that we need collective effort to deal with the crisis in the interest of the people, or we are articulating those issues as reasons why we are providing the kind of budget we have. That is an issue that we need to deal with. And if that is the thinking, then that will be unfortunate, because, as I keep saying, there are various orientations and approaches towards managing the economy. If the economy is in good time, nobody cares if those who are in management position want praise from morning to evening, because everybody can associate him or herself to the delivery of the economy.
Right.
But when the economy is going through crisis, the best approach is to empathize with the people and provide purpose or reasons for which certain policies have been put in place. Right. Because to a large extent, the people of Ghana believe that they are in hardship.
Right. And
certain items in the budget speak to the fact that indeed we are going through hardship. So if you tell me that you reduce inflation from 54% to 10.4%.
Yes, by the end of 2020, that's the claim.
Yeah. What answer does it provide to the burden that the Ghanaians are talking about? In any case, the question is, was inflation going up before the government took over? The answer is no.
Right.
Inflation peaked up at 19%. Now, because of the IMF program, that targeted policy that will reduce inflation and ensure fiscal consolidation, inflation started going down up to 15.4. So if inflation was going down through an IMF program, which was inherited by this government and extended, one expected that the trajectory of that inflation should continue. So it continued.
Right.
Now, in 2018, the government went further to do what we call rebasing of the CPI. Now, when you do rebasing of the CPI, what it means is that you are using a base period which is very close to the current period. Therefore, price distortions and price differentials will be very small, and that will contribute to a lower inflation. So the inflation is not as a result of implementation of economic policies that resulted in lower inflation as we see. They are as a result of rebasing of the CPI. So that is one. So I believe, and I think there is another item that indicates that one of the achievements is that we exited the IMF.
Prof, hold on. Let me get this clear quickly. Now, you're saying that the reduction in inflation was mainly because of the IMF program and the rebasing of the CPI, and not necessarily specific governmental efforts.
I think I'm addressing two issues.
Right.
One is inflation was not going up
in the first place
when the government took over power. Inflation was reduced from 19% to 15.4. Now, the clear logic is that those who were managing before this government took over, if they were to be in power, we will see continuous reduction in inflation. Yeah. But beyond that, in 2018, the government took a step further by engaging what we call statistical tool to rebase the CPI. What it means that the base period for calculating inflation, or the CPI, was drawn forward to 2018.
Right.
What it means is that if I use a simple price relative, and I assume that we are only consuming one item in Ghana just for illustration's sake. So let's say we are consuming pen, or we are using pen, and the price of pen in 2013 was 10 cedis, and the price of pen in 2020, let's say, was 25. It was 55, but the price in 2018 was 50. What it means is that the difference in the prices this time will be 5 cedis, not the difference between 20 and 55. So clearly, when the base period, it brought closer to the current period, the price differential will be very small, and the effect on the inflation will also be very small. We know that. So it is easy to just make those statements without the surrounding condition that I have indicated.
Right.
Now, again, one issue was exiting the IMF program. In fact, it is good for us. We don't go to IMF and we don't rely on any international organization for programs to solve our problems. But be as it may, if you do an analysis of the management of the economy and the NDC and MPP, you realize that any time MPP comes to power, there is a cooked IMF program to enjoy. There was an IMF program, IMF World Bank program of what we call HIPIC in 1999-20, 2000. But the government then didn't decide on what to do, whether to go in for it or not. But when the MPP government came early 2001, they decided to go for the HIPIC initiative, which is basically IMF program.
Yeah.
That was what reduced our debt burden, That was what reduced inflation, and that was what actually introduced us to investment in social infrastructure, because those were conditioned for the release of debt relief funds. And that was done until middle of 2006 or so, when we exited the program. And when we exited the program, that was a time that we did rebasing in 2007. We also engaged in the first Eurobond of $750 million, which was paid off finally in 2017 through the setup of a sinking fund to amortize that loan.
Right.
So if we talk about the gains of MPP government in the first part of the
First 4 years.
Of the 4 years, it is largely because of the IMF program. So we saw the real thing when the IMF program was over.
Okay.
We saw debt going up significantly. We saw inflation going up. In fact, you can check by the January 2008, inflation was 12.1%. But by December 2008, it was 18.1%, 6 percentage points within 1 year. Debt level started going up. We rebased in 2007, but by the end of 2008, we started experiencing massive depreciation of the currency. So come to 2017, MPP government again inherited an IMF program. They didn't throw it away. They embraced it, they operated it, they extended it. So who is exiting IMF program to be some pride, for which when Ghanaians are crying of difficulty, the answer is we exited IMF program. So I think what is in front of us is how to manage the 2021 budget going forward to alleviate the suffering of the people, to give hope to the people that with this period of time, the hardship will be over. And if it is not over, you revise and begin to speak to the people as people who have given you mandate. But not when people are crying about the level of taxes, the number of taxes and levies, then you splash before them, I have done A, B, C, D. So is that the reason why we have this budget?
Okay.
I believe that should not be the way we communicate to the people who put us in power to manage the economy for us. In fact, if you read Article 36, Article 36(1) tells us very clearly what we should expect from good economic management is to maximize the happiness of people. I'm not the one saying it. If you have your constitution, you can read it for all of us to hear what the constitution says over there concerning economy management. And if you don't mind, I can read it to you.
Please do, Prof, for the benefit of our viewers.
So 36(1). The state shall take all necessary action to ensure that the national economy is managed in such a manner as to maximize the rate of economic development and to secure the maximum welfare, freedom, and happiness of every person in Ghana, and to provide adequate means of livelihood and suitable employment and public assistance to the needy. That is what should be the benefit of economic management. And that article is titled Economic Objectives. Right. So this is what we should be achieving and be telling ourselves. But if we are facing a challenge and we throw 81 achievements, what do you want the people to do with that? What do you want the people to do with that? So that is very problematic, the way we think about the people. So I think I can make this preliminary comment for now. Right.
Professor Gatti, that's a mouthful. I am very grateful for that submission to maximize the benefits of prudent economic management. some of it should be the maximization of welfare, freedom, and happiness. Now, Dr. George Domfe has joined us on the line. He wasn't with us when the program started, but I did mention that Dr. George Domfe, who is a development economist at the University of Ghana, is going to join us. He's there now. Hello, Dr. Domfe.
Hello, my dear sister.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, hello, I can hear you.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, too.
Have you been listening in the past 2-3 minutes? I just want to make sure you heard Professor Gachi's submission.
Yeah, my dear sister, let me say good afternoon to your cherished
good evening,
viewers.
Yes, good evening.
And also listeners, and good evening to Professor Gachi. I wish I could hear him, but as I told you when we come earlier, I'm driving towards the house, and I could hardly hear most of the things that he said. Yeah. So
we're looking at the claims that have been made by the Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, some claims about prudent economic management. The first point was the reduction in inflation from 15.4% in 2016 to 10.4% at the end of 2020. What is your take on that specific point?
Okay, if I were to talk about that, because inflation was at 15.4 and they managed it to 10.4 even in HIPIC, then I can only say that he did very well. But if I could get opportunity to give a trend of what has been happening to inflation, those days when President Kufuor became president, we were doing what we call monetary targeting. And because of that, inflation was always very high because the focus was not on inflation, but rather on the money supply. And so because of that, inflation was always very high. Remember at the time President Kufuor came to power, it was 40.5%, very high. That is the year 2000. Yeah, but 2 years afterwards, we moved from monetary targeting to what we call inflation targeting. And so if you look at the whole thing, somewhere around in the middle of March 2003, inflation started going down. And my sisters, we started even recording single digits somewhere after 2006, 2005, 2006, not at the year end, but sometime within the year, at the end of the month, we recorded some single digits. But all the years ended with double-digit inflation. And so Ghana was doing very well as soon as we introduced inflation targeting, and maybe that will be another point of discussion. And so when we went inflation targeting, we were almost heading towards single digits. When all of a sudden 2007, 2008 became, very difficult years for the global economy. You remember American credit crunch. You remember oil hacks. At the beginning of 2007, a barrel of oil was sold around $27. But before we could say that, somewhere in the middle of 2008, we were buying it at $147 per barrel, and that still remains the highest ever in our history. And so when it happened, prices went up. And remember, the year 2007 was the hottest year after the year 2017. And so the whole world, software world, became known as global food crisis. And so prices of food and all those things went up. And because of that, by the end of 2008, inflation in the new, in the model of estimation, had jumped all the way from around 11% to over 16%. And so that was what it was when the new government came. And in economics, we call such is debt. That what happened in 2007, 2008 was a debt because you could clearly see that it was on the downward, movement before we suffered those situations that I've talked about, the global food crisis, American credit crisis that affected Ghanaian economy in a way, and then we also had our own problem. We had Doomsaw around the time. That was when the Doomsaw started, 2007, thereabouts. Akusumu nearly dried up. And so there were quite a lot of issues. My sister. And so that debt keeps the inflation up. But after 2009, 2010, we saw it assuming the normal trend of movement. And so we recorded single digits of inflation for 36 continuous months. And I thought the government at the time was doing very well. Unfortunately, we couldn't maintain it, especially from 2014 coming, when it started moving up, until we left it at 15.4 at the end of December 2016. And so if you want to compare regimes, we are still under inflation targeting regime. And so if it was 15.4%, and then we now are seeing it at 10.4, even with COVID, then you can only say that they have done very well. But without the COVID, at the end of 2019, when there was no COVID, inflation was 7.8%. And so it dropped all the way from 15.4 it was in December 2016 to 7.8% December 2019. And so it was 7.18. That pushed it from 7.8 to, in fact, it even went up to almost 11, I think 11.
10.6,
yeah, before it came down again to 10.4 at the end of the year. And so you can only say they have done well, but that is not even too important. If we say inflation has gone up, you really want to know which part of inflation. So we have the food and non-food. My sister, anytime you hear the food component has gone up, it means suffering. It means, cost of living is going up. And if you look at the trend from 2016 to date, the component of an inflation that has remained very low is the food. To suggest that the prices of food are not going up as high as they used to be some time ago. And that to me is very positive. And that didn't come out of belief. Government has introduced quite a number of policies, especially when, what they call planting for food and jobs and all that. Food is now almost always available in the market. But let me quickly say that even though the government has deliberately initiated some policies that to me have, helped to bring us to where we are, we still find ourselves in a situation where we rely so much on rainfall. And so I can only say that for the last 4 years, we have received very good amount of rainfall. And that to me is significantly the reason why the food prices have been down. But let me say that government has also done very well with the introduction of those deliberate policies.
Dr. Domfe, you mentioned, generally you're saying that they've done very well. But when we look at these economic interventions that you talk about, how have they impacted on the general welfare, freedom and happiness of most Ghanaians?
Yeah, so people become happy when they have food to eat. People become happy when, they have purchasing power. That is when if they are able to buy things, and these things are also within, their means. And so, if an inflation has not gone up so fast as it used to be, historically we are experiencing one of the best periods. And so you can only say that because the prices have not been going up within the reach of the poor, many would be very happy. Apart from that, those who are involved with this planting for food and those things that they talk about a lot are also now making a lot of money because they are able to sell, they produce a lot, they are able to sell a lot. And because of that,
a lot of money is relative. I think their standard of living may have increased, their yield may have increased, but I'm not sure we're at a lot of money yet.
Oh, no. My sister, when I say that, I'm speaking in relative terms.
Okay.
I can tell you, it's not so well with it. I've just gone for my salary and it's finished. If I tell you that, I do believe it, we haven't entered a new month. Yeah, and so I'm speaking in relative terms from where we travel all
from the previous point,
Yeah, to where we are. Yeah, because now, around this time in the year, it will be very difficult for you to go to market and say you get plantain to buy. But this time, around March, at this time, you still go to the market and you see plantain. So I can only say that things are going on well. And except that we still have to work hard because as a country, my sister, we still depend on rainfall. That has been my headache. I know 1 or 2 dams have been constructed up north. They call it 1 village, 1 dam. But I think we need more of that so that our economy doesn't become rain-fed. We have depended so long on rainfall, and I think it's time we started thinking of putting together, mechanism to irrigate all arable lands in Ghana so that we could produce food anytime, any day without waiting for the rainfall. And if that happens, sustainability of the food and food security will never be a problem to us as a country.
Thank you, Dr. Domfe. That's quite a perspective there. I'm just going to go to Professor Gachi quickly because I have a question on the lending rates, which is one of the claims that was made by the Vice President. a revision of the lending rates, seeing a downward revision from 32% in 2016 to 21% in 2020. Now, Professor Gachi, the question I have about this is, aren't we likely to defeat these reductions and stall the downward revision of lending rates with the introduction of the 5% financial sector cleanup levy?
Well, of course, those in the banking sector have made it very clear that they are not Father Christmas. So if you are imposing 5% levy on the before tax of the financial sector, then they will cleverly have to spread it into transaction costs for those who deal with them. So we will see some relative increase in the transaction costs in the banking system. But there are many factors that come together to determine the lending rate. It is also not only the policy rate, which we have reduced significantly over the time. And part of the reduction in the policy rate, it was not informed by all the economic indicators that we used to look at. Part of it was actually a result to the sacrifice by the monetary authorities to contain COVID-19. And as a result of that, that sacrifice will be a cost. That is the reason why when you go to the commercial banks today, those policies that were put in place to reduce interest rate and to postpone payment of interest on loan and the rest, most of them are not working now because it's a cost to the commercial banks they need to contain. And in the regime that we're talking about, the cost of mobilizing funds has not gone down significantly to inform a deeper, lower reduction in lending rate. So we will need to work on those other important items that contribute to the determination of lending rate to see what we want for ourselves. I believe what we need for ourselves as a country is lower interest rate. And that lower interest rate, we have now gotten a benchmark as opposed to the benchmark of comparing it to previous regime, etc. Because of AFTA, that is the African Continental Free Trade Area, where we can now clearly compare the lending rate in, neighboring countries and some countries within the continent, where even Nigeria is doing around 11.5%. Some countries are doing around 6%, some are doing 8%. That now become a challenge to us, that if we are hosting the secretariat, but our SMEs, etc., will go to banks to take money to engage in their productive activities at such a high cost, how would they be able to turn around and participate productively in the opportunities that are provided by the African Continental Free Trade Area? I think that is a challenge we would need to deal with.
This is a very good point.
As I am indicating, the issue about interest rate now is not about whether it was high in the past or it is low now. The yardstick now is whether we will be using our interest rate to compete with Nigerian businesses that will be participating in the AFTA, the Ivorian businesses, the Botswana businesses, Kenyan businesses, etc. That will be participating. How are we going to be fair in terms of access to capital to undertake productive activity to get benefit from the African Continental Free Trade Area? That shows that we still have a lot of things to do.
Thank you so much, Professor Gachi. And this is a point I was, in fact, going to come to, so I'm happy that you've introduced it. But Dr. Domfe, this one goes to you. We've been able to reduce the lending rate, according to the Vice President, to 21%. Now, we know that although it has revised downwards, we still comparatively have a higher lending rate to other countries, especially countries that we are competing with on this new African Continental Free Trade Area. Now, if we're going to be competitive and our industries are already borrowing at a higher rate than the other countries that they are going to compete with, are we positioned for any real advantage over there?
Thank you once again for that beautiful question. I can assure you that as a country, we haven't done so well with the cost of borrowing. And that is what is called, interest rates, if you like. We haven't done so well as a country. It has been going up and coming down, dancing like a pendulum since 1957. Anytime inflation is lending rate is very high, what then happens is that many who otherwise would have entered the market to borrow, to open up enterprises or to expand their current production are not able to do so. And that's one significant reason why our unemployment is so high. That is so much why our GDP is not growing at an expected rate. You know, so all these things are very, very important. But you see, it is very high. It still remains very high with the 21%. But I can assure you that they have really done well. Some time ago, the average lending rate was about 49%. I'm talking about the year 2000. Before President Kufuor left, average lending rate has dropped to 17%. And we all thought he did very well. And our hope was that it will continue to come down. You know, my sister, before we could say that, it has gone up again. It's at 2% it was in December 2016. This is my problem. Our economy, once it begins to do well, within a matter of time, you blink an eye and it has gone back to where it was again.
So we're not sustaining the gains, basically.
Exactly, because bringing it from 49, average 49, to all the way to 17%, I think President Kufuor did a very good job. And, you know, when anytime the lending rates are very low, it does quite a lot of things. One of it is that the non-performing assets of the bank even, goes down. And so the bank now then have the leverage to go out there and get people to come and borrow. So if you were in Ghana 2004, 2005, and then 2004, there around, people were, the banks were going around, encouraging people to borrow. To borrow for what? To borrow and open up enterprises if you don't have any. To borrow to expand your current business. And that's why we can create jobs for the people. But unfortunately, it went up again to 32% December 2016, or even 33 around 2015 before it dropped to 32 in 2016. And now it has come to 21. And that is very good. You know why it happened like that? Once upon a time, the policy rate is a rate at which the central bank lends to the commercial bank. And that is the mother of all interest rate. That is the one that dictates the
commercial
interest rate to follow, including the lending rate. Around the time President Kufuor left, it was around 11%. But my sister, it went up all the way to 27%. So 2016, it was 25.5%. And that was the second worst in Africa. We were only better than Namibia. And the whole world, Ghana was better than only two countries, one in Asia and then Namibia when it comes to, cost of credit.
Dr. Donfe.
If you look back to our history, where we were and where we are, 21 is still low. Now, the policy rate is 14.5%, one of the lowest in the recent years. And therefore, even though it is high, I think they have really done well managing inflation down, while the policy rate is also down. I can only say that the economy is in good hands.
Prof, Doctor, you keep mentioning the Kufuor era, referring a lot of figures to that time and the good performance of that time. But we all know that these figures during that period were not magical. They were largely propelled by the HIPC intervention. Are we trying to say?
No, HIPC because our debt, we had debt.
We're forgiven, yes.
Yeah, but that's not that's one.
You're saying this did not in any way, affect the figures?
No, you are practicing inflation. It will affect some of the figures, but not the lending rate. You are practicing what we call inflation targeting. And so what then happens is that you peg your inflation. Anytime you reduce the policy rate, if you reduce the policy rate and lending rate becomes too low, what happens is that people will have so much money to enter the market to buy. So if they are going to buy and there's nothing to buy, prices will go up. And so you see, you are managing both inflation and you are managing lending rate. If lending rate comes out below the market rate, it will create unnecessary pressure on goods and services, demand for goods and services, for which reason prices will go up beyond the reach of the poor. And so you want to balance it, that let me reduce lending rate, so let me reduce policy rate, so lending rate will come down. And then as the lending rate is coming down, it means more people can now go and borrow. But as they are borrowing, if they are not borrowing according to the details of the market, what will happen then is that people will have so much money, more than the goods and services available, and that will cause inflation to go up unnecessarily. And so if you see inflation coming down, and then at the same time lending rate coming down, you can only say that it means that now people are producing. The local production is now taking shape, and the local production is not because of the debt relief. Of course, the debt relief, we got it, and the government, what would have paid to the foreigners, we kept it here. Of course, that in a way would impact on local production to some extent, but that cannot be the reason why we were where we were, my sister.
Thank you, Dr. Domfe. Prof, would you like to react to that?
Then I'm not here to react to those things. I've told you already that HIPIC was a package that actually helped the country. We are receiving debt relief, and some conditions attached to the debt relief was supposed to be invested in the social sector, and that actually propelled productivity in the social sector, and we saw a number of social intervention during that period. And that package actually helped inflation down, actually helped interest rate down, and actually brought about reforms as part of the package. And if we discount the HIPIC, then it means that we didn't know why we went for the HIPIC.
Now, Prof, one of the good things Dr. Bawumia thinks the NPP government has done is to reduce the rate of depreciation of the currency. He thinks in the last 28 years, 2020 recorded the lowest rate of depreciation. But I remember 2020 depreciation, a lot of people associated it with external factors. Is this something we can take credit for?
Well, I think there is a normal trend of depreciation over time. Of course, our currency, we indicate that it's a depreciating currency. Yes. But there are times that some development take place, normally outside, that have influence on the management of the currency, and the currency will have to respond to those development, and that brings about some erratic depreciation. And again, when we have development like COVID, where import into the country was almost down for a very long period before it resumed somehow, when you have a global supply chain actually thwarted for a very long period of time, you can appreciate the fact that less pressure will be on the currency, and for that matter, the currency will respond the way we are describing. So I think we need to, when we are discussing this, it's not merely about I did it, somebody didn't do it. It's about which environment are we discussing these issues. Because I do know that in 2007, our currency through redenomination was 94 pesos to a dollar. But what do we see after 2007, 2008? We are experiencing depreciation because of the development of that time. We saw global financial crisis, issues of oil prices, etc. We saw the same thing happening in 2015 and then early part of 2016. They replicated. You see the currency responding to those pressures that are coming in. So that is the context within which we discuss these issues. And there are periods where we have very good rainfall pattern when we are our farmers who produce normally because of a prolonged good rainfall pattern. The same thing will not happen if the rainfall patterns do change. So these things, they are not magical. They are to be discussed within those contexts.
Prof, I want to link the rate of depreciation to the lending rate somehow. Now, wait for it. We know to strengthen our currency, which we have identified to unnecessarily fluctuate over every other government, we need to strengthen the private sector because we have to increase our exports. If we're not increasing, I mean, if the private sector is not strengthened, where is the increase in exports going to come from? But in the meantime, if we do not have very favorable rates, commercial lending rates to the private sector, how are they going to increase their production and affect exports?
Well, I think some countries have done well, and
some
they have
countries,
adopted an approach.
But in Ghana, yes. How do we do it?
Yes, so I'm coming to that point. And in fact, that is not my job to do. That is the job of those who are managing the economy. Okay? But the point is,
you can advise, Prof.
Some countries have done that. What they have done is the concept of a development financing scheme. So they identify businesses that will contribute to exports and provided facility to them that will not be burdensome, like going into the real financial institution to get the money. And that actually helped them to become more competitive in the export drive. We have been doing a bit of that through the Exim Bank. In fact, there are some banks that they have some specialized on-lending facility. And most of these things are going to our main traditional cash crop. We need to spread it to actually affect a basket of new items that we can put on the export market, and then we can extend or expand our export destination. Those are the things that I think we can do as we continue to put in effort to drive down interest rate and all other indicators of interest rate. So these are the things that other countries have done, and they have seen some remarkable improvement in their participation in the export market and bringing on board higher or more export revenue in terms of foreign currency to position their currencies properly. So this is not one-way traffic.
It's a medley of interventions. But like Professor Agati mentioned,
a lot of things. And sometimes you may be concentrating on some of the low-hanging fruit within this basket of policies that you need to implement.
Because they're low-hanging, as you are saying.
Because we are a small, open economy, something happened elsewhere, then it trigger effect on us and it derail some of the processes that have been put in place to try to address some of these issues. So I think that is a cycle we are finding ourselves. So if we have a stable situation for a very long time, it will translate into better outcome for us as we desire it.
Thank you, Prof. So this is good advice for the managers of the economy, as Professor Gachi mentioned earlier. He is not the one to implement this. The economists can only suggest and advise. Now, Dr. Domfe, if we're thinking of strengthening specific industries to make ourselves more competitive, to increase export, what kind of industries do you think we should be looking at?
Yeah, my sister, before I come to that, Professor Gachi first spoken, I also made my submission and you asked him to react. So it'd be good you also give me opportunity to also react.
Please,
to some of the
apologies. You can react before we go to the question I asked.
In fact, CD is doing very well. For the last 4 years, the average depreciation rate is 7.2%. And that is better than it was the previous 8 years. The average was 17%. I'm just doing comparison because I've been meeting on other networks, and we always don't agree on one issue. But the fact of the matter is that local productivity increases in productivity. It's significantly the reason why CD is gaining value. So those things that you would have gone out there to buy, now you are getting it here. I must also admit that oil, today we are producing 196,000 barrels of oil. And so when you sell, significantly we are bringing in so much, foreign, currency. And that, to me, is one of the significant reasons. But if you take that aside, we had an agricultural sector that was growing around 0.9%. Now, before COVID, growing over 6%. Even now with COVID.
Even during COVID, the agri did grow. Yes, it was one of the main drivers of GDP.
And so the local production has gone up. And that significantly is the reason why, I mean, we are experiencing, the strength for our local currency. When somebody does well, when someone prevails, they say applaud must be given to that person. Those policies that are now helping the local production, YB1F, producing equity juice and all those things, they are all in a way helping. And so we saw manufacturing sector, my sister. If you look back to our history, manufacturing sector has been growing around 2%. And once upon a time, I think 2018 also, it grew 9.3%, one of the highest in our economic history. When you see the real sector, that is the manufacturing sector, agricultural sector doing very well, it can translate into the strength of the city because they are producing many things that otherwise would have gone out there to, import. Some have attributed the strength of the city to, COVID. I struggle to understand that argument. Yes. So at the beginning, when we were not buying Ghana, one of the major reasons why city has a problem is that people always rise to go and make a demand for dollars, foreign currency, to go out there and buy to come and sell. Because of COVID, these people could not go, and because of that, the demand for foreign currency reduced. But we have also forgotten that at the same time, what would have come into our economy as dollar, because it is the available supply of dollars that determines the value of the city, right? And so at the same time, let me take only China for example, because China is one of our biggest trading partners. Right. Every year, the import value to China from Ghana on average is $1.8 billion. And so people will exchange cedis into $1.8 billion to go to China to buy and bring the goods here. Now, because of COVID, let us say they couldn't go. So there was no pressure. They didn't change cedi for that $1.8 billion. But we should also forget that China also, we export goods from China worth $4.8 billion. And so look at the difference. And so you see the COVID rather hurt the value of the city. Yes, if you look at it from that argument.
Dr. Donfe, let me get this. You say we export goods to China?
China, yes.
At 4.8
billion. And the import is
from Ghana?
The import is worth $1.8 billion.
I get that we import 1.8 billion, but you're saying we export from Ghana at 4.8 billion to China.
Exactly. And so the
okay, this is new information.
And that difference would have come to, strengthen the value of the city. And so because of COVID, we didn't see that difference. And that difference is always to our advantage. Between Ghana and China alone, our trade, we get trade surplus. And so we shouldn't also forget one thing that I want to also even bring it to the fore is that for the last 4 years, we know oil has been helping, and I admitted that in 2017 when we started producing 196,000 barrels a day, it really helped. But let me quickly say that for those years, we have been recording trade surplus. And Ghana, our economy, it has always been negative. What it meant was that the import value was always higher than the export value. But for the past 4 years, we have been seeing trade surplus, meaning that our export value is higher than our import value. Even in COVID, when we could not sell more oil, that is what is happening. We are recording positive trade surplus. And so you see, when you get trade surplus, when something happens good, let's talk about it.
Between 2017 and 2020, yeah.
Exactly. So let's put it in a better perspective and see how we can progress from that. But if something positive happens, and then we try to, at all costs, find other reasons to make it look appear as if nothing good has happened, my sister, that leaves much to be desired. And so the point I'm trying to say is that yes, in all this, one significant reason for where city is because of our reserves. Now we have 10 billion reserves. In fact, it just came down because of the COVID. But before the COVID, our reserves have gone down to 10 billion. And my sister, that is the highest since 1957. That is the highest. And anytime your reserves is higher, it gives the Bank of Ghana that leverage to supply the dollar if they need this. And so this one, you don't need any elementary economics to understand this principle. Since 1957, we recorded our highest, reserves of over 10 billion in 2019. And so you could see that something positive is happening, even though it might not be enough, and it might not be what we want. We still we have to consolidate. The point we have to now talk about is how do we consolidate these days, but not to make the gains look as nothing. Those things are really very painful, especially when something very beautiful is happening, and people want to attack or find reason to suggest that anything good that is happening is not because of any good management somewhere, but it's because of this. And after these same people finish, when anything bad happens, then it is because of the management, managers of the economy. When that happens, I don't think we can move forward as a country. If we really want to move forward, let's get serious with some of these issues, with some of these analysis.
Dr. Domfe, but you see, there can't be a general agreement on all these issues.
When you even started, you say, I'm a Baumia claim, I wanted to correct you and say that he is not claiming all those figures that you have said. I want somebody to come and say, they are not true. These are figures.
Well, we're interrogating the figures, and the truth will come out.
So you don't say he claims. This is what is happening. If you go through the budget, all the figures are there. And the budgets have been approved by Parliament. And so we take those figures as the truth. You know, the people are measuring, these things, even the measurement of fiscal deficit. The same formula that we have been using as a country. Today, people want us to use a different formula. You see, we have to be consistent. I struggle sometimes to understand where we want to take this country to. If we really love this country, let's face facts as they are. All these are facts, because if your cost of credit was the highest in Africa, you could only beat Namibia. That was unfortunate. And so if today you have come down and you are doing 14.5 instead of the 25.5 you inherited, and at the same time you did this, you've been able to maintain inflation 10.5. That is massive improvement over what we saw. And because of all these things that we are seeing, international credit rating agencies have now rated Ghanaian economy, Standard & Poor's, for example, has rated Ghanaian economy with positive outlook. We have been upgraded. Our economy has been upgraded for the first time since President Kufuor's time. Our economy was always downgraded. When President Kufuor was there, we were D+. We started going down until we hit D-. Now we are going up to B. And that B should give signals that we are doing well because of the B. Today, when we go to the European bond market for loans, for bonds, we are getting it at coupon rate of 7%, even 40-year bond, compared to 22-year bond when we were taking it at 19%, 17%, coupon rate. So you see, it's not anybody who is telling Standard & Poor's and the other people that Ghanaian economy is doing well and then they should upgrade it. Nobody. They know the facts, they know the figures. And so if we Ghanaians are here and because of, for the want of better words, because of political experience, we want to, at all costs, make it look like nothing good has happened. That's a big unfortunate. It's very unfortunate.
Dr. Domfe, thank you so much, Dr. Domfe. But, when I say claim, these are statements that have been made by the Vice President. And that's the purpose of this program, to determine whether these are to be attributed to government or not. And clearly, I'm not the expert. That's why I've invited Dr. Domfe and Professor Gachi. So if we're going to, following some of these statements, we can see that some of them have been agreed to be the present condition and, of course, have been attributed to the management of the economy or otherwise. And there's also been some loopholes where we realize there's a lot of improvement to be done. Now, if we're going to attribute every positive thing to government, then we might also have to attribute the fallouts also. But Dr. Domfe, the previous question I asked before we got there was, which industries should we be looking at if we're trying to improve our competitive advantage, especially now that we have the African Continental Free Trade Area?
I'm not saying that the positive thing has happened because of the government. It's because of what government is doing. But what the government has done, let us applaud it. What they have done was let us applaud it.
Prof, I think so far we've given to Caesar what belongs to Caesar.
I don't see that from Gachi. I was listening to him and
right.
Theories are so, sometimes I struggle to understand. Recently I was on TV3 with him. Unfortunately, he kept on talking, so they never go back to me, and I had a meeting, so I had to tell you. He talked about a lot of things, and sometimes I thought, is it Ghanaian economy that he's talking about? Things were really very bad, and we all saw it, and we have to go for. At the point, we even lost policy credibility. We have to go for an IMF,
thank you.
An arrangement. April 2015. Everybody was aware. The economy was not going on well. And all those things that were very bad, today we have seen them doing very well, except that. It's only, debt to GDP ratio, that we have seen it now worse than, it was those years. Otherwise, almost every economic figure that we want to talk about today, it is happening better today than it was. And let us, and they are not, deliberate. They are not for nothing. These are, all these things that we are seeing them because of policies that have come, that the government is currently
Thank
running.
you so much, Dr. Domfe. So that's the enriching part of this conversation. There won't be absolute agreement, but you can be sure that at the end of the day, the viewer is listening and the viewer will pick out the explanations for himself or herself and be more informed or more enlightened on most of these points by the end of the program. And that's our main aim, that you go away from this program more enlightened than you joined, or more informed than you joined. Now, I'll go to Professor Gatti for his closing remarks, and then I'll come to you, Dr. Domfe. We have barely 4 minutes left to go. So, Prof.
Okay, thank you very much. I think you invited us to come and give our independent opinion on issues. I expected you to control your other person on the line.
Oh, Professor Gatti, all the interjections I made, all the interjections I made, you didn't see it.
I don't understand why you invited me to analyze, and I have become the subject of his discussion. I am not his boy. I'm here to proffer my independent understanding of what the Ghanaian economy is. He shouldn't be crying because I don't toe his line. I'm not here to sing praises. I think you need to control the temperament of the people you bring on your program. It's very, very important. The gentleman you are talking about right now on TV3 last, he was insulting me. Maybe he didn't know he was referring to that. We don't do that. We are lecturers. We need to ensure that we ensure emotional control and maturity. We don't do that. If I know that you are going to bring somebody who has problem with his emotions and maturity.
You see, Prof, this is what I was saying before. There's beauty in the disagreement.
Because it is very sad to expect me. It is very sad to expect me that somebody will announce that when a budget is read and is approved, everything is perfect in it. We need to take it like a gospel fact. I've not heard that before.
Right. Thank you so much, Professor Gatti. Do you want to put in any closing remarks before we go?
About what?
The entire discussion. I mean, we have like
you have asked me questions. I've provided my answers in context.
Right.
I think I heard something about the reserve. I think the reserve that was published in the budget was gross reserve. We are talking about net reserve. Why is that net reserve? That is what determines where we are. And somebody is telling me that when there is a budget, you don't question it. No, we shouldn't do that. Let us let the public understand the issues. In fact, the people, they are rational. When we speak, they listen to us. They know what they are taking, what they are not taking. It is not by force. So I hope next time when I meet my friend, that kind of maturity and self-control is important. Let's respect the people. They will listen to us. What they want to take, they will take it.
I like that you refer to him as your friend. Thank you so much, Professor Gatti and Dr. Domfe. We're very grateful for both your times. Two men that we respect very much, and they have both contributed to enriching this discussion. As I mentioned earlier, Professor Gatti is the Dean of the School of Business at Cape Coast University, and Dr. Domfe is a development economist at the University of Ghana. They have both made very deep, interesting contributions to this discussion. And I said before, I mean, the viewers will decide what they take away and what they keep. But I hope that clearly we have both gained more knowledge from the entire discussion. Thank you so much to you for spending your 1 hour with us. My name is Nwong Falong. Good evening.